thank you guys for joining us on our first masterclass. Really, again, the intent is to go into more of an overview. So this is what I'm going to do. So this is the Brickwork website, and I really wanted to kind of highlight one of these reports. But essentially, if you go to the home page, what we really want our users and agents to do is ultimately sign up here, register. We have, a couple of subscription plans. We have a novice, which is absolutely free, that you don't pay per month and you just pay per report, lot or parcel. And then subscription plans where you pay $100 a month or $250 for 5 or 15 reports per month. But I didn't want to go into detail there. I kind of wanted to more along the lines of show a request for a report. So once you've signed up, you just press here, and I kind of want to go over, so if you look on the screen here, the title of the report, and a lot of users have asked us questions, what the title, that's really up to you. This is a report that you have access to yourself. And so we just really want to be able to provide a way for you to understand which report this is. So a lot of the times it's, Culver City, 20 unit, Koreatown, 50 unit, whatever that title will be. And you could always change this as well. The price is not mandatory. So you could, go beyond the price. Disclosing the address and marketing this process or the property, that's after. So I'll touch on this later on, but at this point, you don't have to click on this, but you can always request to market the property, and you could always request to disclose if and when it's ready to market to other brokers, users, or developers. But at this point, you could just not check this. And as you can see, the only mandatory requirement here is the address. So that's all we're asking for, is an ability to do this. So give me 1 second here. I think I'm hearing. Okay, good. Let me just mute. Okay, and so the address is really mandatory, and even the address, just so you know, it doesn't have to be the exact address. There's certain agents that have just said, look, it's on 5th and Hobart Boulevard, and I think it's the southeast corner. We've even had requests like this. That's fine. We'll, respond back, and we'll narrow that down as far as which lot or parcel you're indicating. But at this point, just an address, not an APN, city, state, none of that you don't have to fill out. Just the address is fine, and you request a report at that point. But I wanted to get right into a report. So here's some of the properties that and the reports that we have that is currently on our website. And I'm sorry for the slow internet connection, but I don't know, it was faster earlier, but so, okay, great. And I believe for this example, I'm gonna use this report, which is in, and this address is disclosed. So this was a user and an agent that wanted to share this address for potential other agents that have developers that are interested, or developers themselves. So this is in Koreatown. It's a 7-lot assemblage, 160 unit potential, and that's under TOC, which is Transit Oriented Communities, Tier 3. So as you can see, this report has the by right zone, the max unit, the lot size, the tier, and how many lots are involved. So as you scroll down, again, I'm going to do the overview, and we'll have another class held by Tucker that goes into each line and describe. But this is the existing conditions of all of the lots here. The development potential by right, and I want to describe this. So what by right means is, without going for any sort of density bonus programs, this is what the city and the inherent zoning for these lots allow you to build. So if you add the total buildable area, which is the footprint, and also the envelope, right, you're able to build 93 units. So I really wanted to hone in on the fact that what a by right means. versus what the max is with TOC or the state's density bonus program, because the developers know this as well. So I definitely want to stress this point. So it's 93 units without having to do anything else except obviously going through the procedures, obtaining permits and building. But otherwise, you don't have to go through any sort of additional or even an entitlement process per se for this 93 units. Now, the development potential with TOC or DB. So TOC is transit-oriented communities, that was passed a few years ago, that states if the lot or parcel is within, say, a 1 mile radius or a radius of a mass transit, so a subway, a rail line, intersecting bus lines, then you're able to get these development bonuses. So floor area ratio goes up. Obviously, you're going to get more density and more units that you can build. But in exchange for that density, you're also having to release affordable units. And that's kind of the give and take, right? The city is always going to want developers to build affordable housing. And so the push and pull with that requirement is, the developers, sure, of course, they would want to meet those requirements, but it comes down to economics, the cost of the land, the cost of the construction costs, the hard cost of the materials that keeps going up, and also labor costs. So if you combine all of that, then you're left dealing with the right side of the budget, which is really high, and you have to kind of supplement that with income, with rental income. And if that doesn't pencil, then it's hard for the developer, or it makes the decision for them. They're not going to be able to build on that site. So that's what this provides. It's the city's kind of response to that. And they're saying, okay, we'll allow you to build much more market rate units, right? So that you could earn revenue or income from there. And then you can also, you have to come in with an affordable component. Oh, hi, Sophia. I'm gonna go. Hi, I'm gonna go ahead and mute you because I'm recording this, so you'll have access to this when we share it to you. But I'm gonna leave the questions at the end, if that's okay.
No
okay.
problem.
Awesome. Thank you. So this is the development potential, and now going into jurisdictional. And here's something that's of value to developers, is the restrictions. And why I say that, and why brickwork is such a value add for developers, is because in LA particularly, there's a lot of layers to development, right? So I'm just gonna go over, again, an overview of a few of these, and we'll cover a more in-depth class with Tucker on what each of these means and the effect of the development. But essentially, just going through this rent stabilization ordinance, of course, that essentially means rent control. And we even kind of describe what that it means. And on a high level, it's just saying that whatever you're replacing as affordable units, right? You have to replace 1-to-1 or 20% of the new units, whichever is greater. But just so you know, there's an additional requirement here, because if you scroll up here, there's a TOC requirement, right? Transit-oriented communities is also saying, look, you can build 93 units on these 7 lots, but we'll allow you to build 160 if you can, right? 10% extremely low in the different categories of affordable. So which one applies? Now that is really site specific, and I think requires a deeper look with a land use consultant. So again, brickwork is the partner is Irvine and Associates, and we could definitely provide that analysis post this. But it's a red flag, right? The purpose of the restrictions was really quickly for the developer to go down and go, okay, what's going to limit this development? What do I have to look out for, and what do I have to do more research for? So as you can see right there, definitely have to look out for that this is under rent stabilization ordinance. Now, if you go down, there's Q&T conditions. What are Q&T conditions? Those are conditions that thankfully this site doesn't have, but if it does, you'd again have to look at it deeper, and we provide that explanation. But a potential Q condition could be that this is all R4, but the Q condition for, say, this property or these lots, bring that down to an R3, and that would greatly diminish the units that you're able to build because of that Q condition. So it's just an added restriction on certain sites, and you have to look out for them, right? So again, they're right here, and then there's other stuff like if this was in Santa Monica or anywhere along the coast, it'd be subject to a coastal zone, which is another added layer of delays and steps to be able to get the site entitled fully and able to build. But okay, so going down here, I wanted to go over what the Brickwork Analyzer is. So the purpose of this calculator is really a back of the napkin. And what that means is, as an agent, once you're starting to figure out what a developer would want to pay for a site, this is exactly what this is. So we have building type 1, type 3, type 5. What does that mean? So a type 1, is an all steel structure. So a lot of the high rises, the downtown builds are a type 1. They're the most expensive, obviously, but they're required when you're building so many units, or you're going so many stories, and especially if you're building in urban area, dense areas like neighborhoods like downtown. So for this site itself, it's 160 units. So we're thinking that this will most likely be a type 3 build. Now, what's a type 3 versus a type 5? So a type 5 is what you see out at most of the apartments that are getting built. It's a concrete box. You might have some subterranean parking underneath, 1 or 2 levels, and then you have something above grade, which just means that it's you drive up to the apartment, and you might have a level of parking and guest parking there at street level, and then you might even have a ramp that goes above as well. So again, that's all development specific, but a type 5 is that. But the reason why there's even a type 3 is a type 5 limits it to, I think, 6 stories or maybe 7 stories, and anything afterwards, you have to go with the type 3 build, and that affects the average construction cost, the dollar per square foot. The land cost is something that you can adjust. So, on this particular site, it's 160 units. So I'll go over actually an average or just a number you can work with. So let's just say that sites are selling, fully unentitled, but it's TLC in Koreatown for about 60,000 a door, and that times 160 units. So you're looking at 9.6 million. So you could put initially here a 9.6 land cost, and the rents per area is something that you could get obviously through CoStar, Rent.com. There's other resources that you can use, but let's say here you're building into a $4 per square foot, because I believe the latest development in Koreatown is being marketed at $4 a foot. You could go aggressive and put 425 or 450, but again, I would just stick with something that's on the market right now. And the cap rate, I'm not going to go too much in detail, but the developers have been telling us that they're building into a 5% cap rate, which is not ideal for them. They would rather build in the 6.5, but given the cost of land and everything else, that they're still justifying builds at 5. And so you just press calculate. And so what does this come up with? I wouldn't focus so much on the buy right. There might be some sites where the developer decides, look, I don't think the market or that neighborhood necessarily needs more units. So I think we could move forward with a buy right project, which is fine. So that's why this category is here. But on this site, the developers want more units because, as you can see, the gross rents, the revenue, the net operating income ends up being higher, and that kind of the point is to offset the construction costs. So on this type 3 build, $325 per square foot on a gross total buildable. So one other point I want to hammer here, you don't have to go into too much detail, is the Brickwork report is giving a essentially a max buildable. That doesn't necessarily mean the developer wants to build 160 units. The next step to this process is really getting an architect to start to work on a site plan and a massing model. And what those two things are is, okay, physically, this is 7 lots, but they have to look at where it's located, where the parking ingress, egress will likely be, right? Physically, how much can you build with the setbacks? And so, it might not end up being 160. Some sites might net close to it, maybe a 158 or maybe a 160, but there's other sites that might be only 140 or 145. So at this point in stage, that's something that the developers are going to do during their due diligence, is to really do a quick site plan and massing model at that time to figure out, again, all right, we're only going to build 148 units. So does that change obviously changes the numbers here, but does that still justify the 9.6, or during that due diligence, do they want to negotiate that down? So that's something that they're going to work on during their due diligence phase. So, but again, we just want to give them max potential. This is, for the agents, what this provides is an opportunity to look into it further. So if the developer goes, I'm only looking at sites at 150 or more, this fits, right, that criteria. But again, they do have to underwrite this a bit more to figure out if they could get to the 160. So okay, so again, we wanted this to be editable because, again, you can use this tool to price it. You're trying to understand what the developers are looking at a high level. Trust me, this is not even close to how they underwrite. Some of the developers have shared their spreadsheets and underwriting models have 100 to 150 lines of different calculations, right? And they use their own, regression analysis, and they go really in advanced ways to figure out, if the site is good. And that's not the agent's job or anyone's job. That's the developer's job to fully underwrite. But you need to have a very surface layer ability to go, all right, well, there's obviously output, or output is the cost that they have to pay for, 9.6 or 9 million or 10 million, and there's a cost of construction. But what are we getting as far as net operating income? What's the potential valuation of that apartment or mixed use, right? Once it's fully built. And so, what does that provide for me as far as some sort of rate of return metric? Okay, so that's what this analyzer or back of the napkin calculator is. So now you have this report. I kind of wanted to go the next step, and the very important is what the commercial agents are actually using this report to do. And there's a couple of things that we've seen and they've shared with us that we want to share with you. One of which is that you're able to use this to look at potential listings and development sites. So we highly recommend, and obviously on our social media, we post a lot of their articles, is Urbanize LA. And so what Urbanize LA does is, it's incredible. They go down by the neighborhood and they post what development sites are going on in that neighborhood. And so you could go neighborhood specific. So this site is in Koreatown. So I wanted to kind of bring up a developer in Koreatown, Hankey Group, and you could even go by the development group and search within here, and they'll go ahead and post all the different developments that they're working on. And so the one that I wanted to highlight is this one here, which is a joint venture with Jameson Group. and they're going to be building 644 apartments. And look at this. So there's an estimate on how much, and this is all being disclosed by the developer, right? So 300 million, joint venture Hankey and Jameson. Where is it? It's a 3-acre site on 2900 Wilshire Boulevard. The architects, right, that are working on it, 1,100 parking spaces. Wow, this is a big one, right? And so they're even projecting what the rents are going to be, anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 per month. It's going to be studio 1, 2-bedroom. And it's being built by the construction company AECOM, which actually built the Staples Center and Wilshire Construction, and they're anticipated to open 2021. So as you can see, a lot of information is already provided for you on Urbanize. So what you can do is, if this was your potential site, and I mean potential is you don't have the listing yet, okay? You've identified through a Brickwork report, wow, if I can get all the owners to agree to list their home and sell their home to a developer, I could put this assemblage together. And that's what a lot of the commercial land brokers and agents are doing. And so once you have this set up as a target, you look at the neighborhood and the developers that are likely to purchase, but it is a numbers game. So I'm not saying that you should only just send it to one development group. That doesn't work. You have to send these emails out 20, 40, 100 at a time, or even more, and you have to wait to see what interest you're getting from these development groups. Or you could be more specific. And so the Hankey Group here on their website, they are actually a car dealership that started back in 1972, and they've branched out, and obviously, you know, they acquired North Hollywood Toyota. They have an insurance group, a financial services group, a technology group here, and so they've kind of branched out and are also developing in Koreatown and joint venturing obviously with Jameson. So I would just go on their website, look at their team, and they would have email addresses, phone numbers here available for you. So I would literally start putting them on a spreadsheet here to email. So I'm not going to go into details for that, but I just kind of wanted to share that Urbanize is a tool to then get to a list of developers that you can start emailing this report to. And you know, some of the things that you could add onto the content of the email is because all the developers are different, right? There's hundreds of developers, and they all have nuances as far as, look, we only look for corner lots. We only want to build 150 minimum units. We only want things we've identified in the West Side or up and coming neighborhoods. So there's going to be a myriad or a plethora of requirements. And so, that, and it's, again, the same as for any sort of buyer and seller, right? Or investor. So the point is not really to match one for one, but use this as a tool to then get that response. So you send the email out, you get maybe 3 or 4 responses, and the developers either like this Koreatown site, or they go, oh, that's great that you have this, but here's what we're looking for. So then you can put them on a needs list, and then you could start looking for what they're requiring through a map. And so it ends up being where I think a lot of the agents are just going through just the Google map in Koreatown and looking for sites that are potentially a C for mixed use, if they were mixed use, or if they want to only build 50 units, then you could look for R4 properties anywhere around here, click on the address and request those reports through us, get the report, get an idea of what you can build, share that with them. So it's really a numbers game at this point. But another thing I wanted to provide is, and maybe I just skipped through here, is this is an opportunity zone site. And if you don't know what an opportunity zone is, just a quick description of it is, it passed. It's not fully done yet, but it's getting close. It's a joint kind of a work by the Treasury and the IRS. it basically says it's a better, more incentivized 1031 exchange opportunity. So if you're in an opportunity zone like this is, right, essentially what investors can do is 1031 into this development site. Let's just say that they owed, for sake of purposes, $1 million in capital gains tax, okay? And so if you keep this, if you put the $1 million here to buy this site in this zone and you kept it in for 7 years, then you've reduced the 1 million to 850,000 because you reduce, if you 1031 exchange into an opportunity zone and you keep that investment for 7 years, you've reduced your 100% tax, which is $1 million, to 85%. So you've saved, 150,000. You deferred it. So that's not the main point here. The main point is, okay, what did you do with the $1 million? Well, I put it as a down payment or as a percentage of ownership on this development site, and we built this development, right? And now it's worth 100 million. Well, you have to pay a capital gains tax from the baseline cost of 9.6 or whatever the land cost is, and then the difference of that versus what's valued there now, right, at 100. Well, that's a big tax. That's a big capital gains tax. But the opportunity zone says that after 10 years, you pay zero capital gains tax. So, of course, it's the biggest buzzword in commercial real estate is opportunity zone. And there's been billions of dollars already massed in funds ready to pull the trigger. I've even read articles of certain funds already starting to develop in anticipation of what they expect is their savings. But the more conservative groups like CIM Group, I think that raised $5 billion, is waiting in the sidelines, and they're just going to wait 100% until the IRS and the Treasury, right, have set the final standards and guidelines on reporting and what it actually is before they pull the trigger. But anyways, this is going to be big because, again, I'll share this link with you. It's just the California state's link, but you enter the address here and there's all these opportunity zones here. And the reason why we say development is if you read into the opportunity zone, you can even invest in startups, restaurants, a lot of different other businesses, but it also appeals to development because a development window's a lot longer, right? To entitle, to build, to stabilize, that in itself could be 3 to 5 years. And then you might have built into a cycle where rents are low. I don't think that's going to happen in LA or Southern California, but anywhere else it possibly can. So it allows for any investor to ride out that economic cycle where it's on a dip and then it's back up on a high. And of course, now it's worth 100 million or more. You've kept it 10 years, you pay zero capital gains on it, and then you could do with it what you will after the 10th year. So I just wanted to point that out. And we do screen for that for these sites. Okay, so just to recap, these reports are the initial due diligence for developers. Developers all have acquisitions analysts. The bigger the developer, the more analysts they have. But they also are overwhelmed. Some of these reports or something like this could take, on certain sites 5 or 10 minutes, and for certain sites an hour or 2 hours. So if they're having to go through 50, 100 email at a time from commercial agents or everybody else that are giving them these sites to look at, they do not have an ability to screen through all of these. So our other part of our marketing is really just to have developers as users, right? Because this saves them time. But again, we haven't reached all the developers, right? And they're not all users of Brickwork either. So, the agents or you guys will also be able to deliver this in front of developers. They get introduced to this and they go, wow, this saves me a lot of time. And so you can be that resource for them that does save them time on screening for sites that at least gives them an idea of, yeah, we're definitely not interested in the site. This is not something that we want to build, or we like the site and we want to do a deeper underwriting on it, potentially with that. So to finish up my point, so with this report, you send this out to developers. A few developers have interest. So the flip side of this is then taking that interest in a very open-ended letter of intent that says, look, we're interested in the site. We ran our own numbers quickly, and we feel that we want to pay, 9.6, or it could be 10, or whatever the number ends up being. So you could take that and then approach the ownership. If it's 7 lots, obviously it might be one owner, it might be 7 owners. Again, that varies based on the assemblage, but you could take that LOI to them to get a meeting and to figure out. And then again, before I even do that, I would look at those sites also, whether they're commercial redevelopment, where it's a car wash being redeveloped, or just a strip mall, or multifamily apartment, or even an R4 units like these are. These are just mostly just R4 4-unit. They're fourplexes, right? Set being put together, but and figure out what the comps are and the market value of them if they just sold them individually versus selling them to a developer. And the point is, I'm not saying this is all the time, but often you're going to see that the prices that a developer will pay will be higher than its inherent comp or market value, because it's really dirt value, it's land value. The developer really just wants to look at a site that they could build, on this one, 160 units, right? And be able to, as I had mentioned, build into an opportunity zone and keep this for 10 years or greater and not have to pay the capital gains. So anyways, that is about it. I really wanted this first class to be more of an overview of the reports, and then kind of go into how our agent users are using these reports. And again, that's not a template to say that that's the only use case. It's not. We've received emails and calls with landowners that were like, hey, I'm a buyer of investment properties, and an agent sent me this, and now I have other land, right, that I own. I would like a brickwork report, or this agent sent me something, and I have other stuff, and if that's something that, yeah, I would want to work with that agent with this brickwork report. I mean, there's even been reach out from us that said, well, we were listing, I think, a cannabis grow site in Long Beach, which was, but the zoning was ideal that they decided to get a brickwork report on it as well. And they were like, wow, this could be either or. It could be a redevelopment site or this. So it serves a lot of purposes. And I'm not trying to say that that's the only way that you can, obtain a listing or get a developer interested, but it definitely is a used approach, and I think it will work at scale. Yeah. And also networking as well. If you attend a networking event and you have this on a thumb drive, or you've printed it out and you've speak with the developer, when they actually read through this, they're going to realize that this is all valuable information to initially screen sites, and it's a way to network as well. So there's a multitude of uses, and our intent was really to provide this value to agents. This report, obviously, with my partner Alex and Irvine and Associates, or if you go to any other land use consultant, right? They provide a more in-depth report than this, but this provides great initial anyways. And so the value for that report would be a week turnaround, and it could be at least a few $1,000s, right? Because you have to pay a retainer, $300, $400, $500 an hour of research, and you're going to get this kind of report. So that's part and parcel what the usual way was to be able to get these reports. This report, obviously it's 7 lots, so we charge $50 per lot or parcel. So this is a $350 report, but this actually could just be a $200 report. Well, how does that happen? Well, because we offer a specialist subscription plan where if you pay $100 a month, you get 5 lots per month. They don't roll over, but obviously you get 5. So if you exceed that, you do get subject to paying per lot or parcel. So you would get 5 here, at the subscription at 100, and you would get 2 more lots for 100. So this report essentially, from being a $3,000 report, is only $200. And so, and you could cancel those subscriptions anytime. So the value is we wanted to provide those more expensive reports at a price point where you can do more of these reports to work in your favor in a numbers game to get more developers networked, interested, and then you can, once you have the interest level of 5, 10, 15 developers that want specific sites, you can use this tool again to start prospecting to get those sites for them. So, okay, so that concludes the class. I'm going to open it up for questions. So I'm going to unmute everybody. And if you have any questions, this is the time.
So you said you're gonna send out, this is Gina, by the way, you said you're gonna send us this link so we could watch it again, because portions of it, like a little bit of it was muted, and then I had a call I had to take, so I missed a few areas.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. This is being recorded as we speak. So I will share this with everybody. And on a move forward basis, all the future classes are all going to be recorded. So there isn't going to be a mandatory attendance to it. I really wanted you guys to be on this. So if you had any questions now about this, I could at least address them now, and then you could go back and watch.
So how do we address it, though? You're going to email us the link, or how does it work?
Absolutely. So Elle actually is going to share a Google Drive folder of this recording that you all will have access to. And
okay,
I hope ultimately is after you've watched this and Tucker's, and the next one is actually going to be more in depth. So Tucker is our senior analyst who, our land use analyst who does these reports, will now go into more detail on what really floor area ratio is, right? And how a higher number is more beneficial. Why do we have setbacks? What are these requirements? A footprint, an envelope, right? He'll go line by line. So we'll also record that and share that. So we want to do a few of these just so that we can have this to share. And we're hoping that you guys will then be able to share these with some other agents you feel would benefit also, or might be a user.
Great. Thank you. This is great information, by the way.
Awesome. All right. So now I'm trying to figure out, I thought I unmuted. So Eileen, I think you're still muted, but Sophia, if you have any questions, yeah, let me know.
So how often are you going to do these things? Like every month, or?
Right now, ideally, I think we're lack of content, right? Like we have way more agents that are not understanding what this is and how powerful this is. And the few that they do, oh my goodness, they're taking advantage. Okay, so I got to share. So one of our users, and we made this public on social media, is, and I think Sophia might have heard of her, is we are the source for Lori Lustig Bauer, and she